Thank you for tuning in to the Muse Report podcast, the number one podcast in the world for visionaries looking to turn their dreams into realities. I'm your host, Cleavon Davis, and this is episode number 43. Today we're talking about practice. Yeah, you might be saying to yourself, what does he mean, practice? I'm not an athlete, I'm not a musician. Doesn't matter. If you want to be good at anything, you need to practice. How are you going to build your vision if you're not good at what you do? No one will give you the time of day. Now, practicing can sometimes be a very hard thing to do. I'm sure you found yourself quite unmotivated at times or simply not knowing how to practice. So to figure out this whole perfecting your craft practicing thing, I sat down with Dr. Wayne Bucknor. Dr. Bucknor is a professional pianist, music professor, songwriter, arranger, and if you ever heard him play, he would completely blow your mind. I mean, the things he does on the piano, you're like, how does he do it? And it's simply because he figured out how to practice and perfect his craft. So we're going to tap into a little bit of that expertise so that we can get one step closer to building our vision. Let's get into this episode right now. Let's go.
Loading.
Extra, read all about it.
It's a case study for success.
Be teachable.
What better way to learn than to just ask?
The learning process becomes a journey.
Turning dreams into realities.
Part of execution is totally believing whatever you're doing is going to work.
What are your passions and what are your gifts? And that's where it really starts.
Chances are for taking. Take a chance on yourself.
Any and everyone is capable of being a leader.
You're not going to have all the answers immediately.
Mentors to expose you to things that you otherwise wouldn't know.
It was all I thought about and dreamed. Like I would literally get up in the morning, practice, because I knew the time would come.
Just do it.
Originally from New York, or born in New York, moved to Florida when I was 10, Orlando, kind of grew up there. Then came to Oakwood College at the time for school in 1989. Started piano lessons when I was 6. My parents told me that my dad started lessons and I would always come around to the piano trying to play what he was playing. And he actually stopped taking lessons so that I could take lessons because he couldn't afford for both of us to go. So I took lessons from George Davis in New York, and I think I did well there, and continued through Florida with the Iris Engel Daniel School of Music in Florida, and I just owe so much to my parents because that school of music we couldn't afford either, and they would clean the school so that me and my brother could get lessons.
Wow.
There, that's through high school. Background: I'm a pianist, a songwriter. I've been a minister of music, professor at Oakwood University now, mainly dealing with the piano students, and also direct the jazz ensemble. And I've been a songwriter for years as well.
Cool. So as far as your music journey, you kind of just started from watching your dad, and you just kind of like wanted to start playing yourself, and you began. What age was that?
That's what they tell me, 6.
It's so far back you don't even remember.
Oh yeah, that's now 40 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So 6 years old, and then you progressively just fell in love with it and just kept going with it.
Well, that's a good. Did I fall in love with it? I think I loved it when I was just playing around, but when it came to practicing, no, I wanted to go outside and play ball.
Yeah.
You know, but at that point, my parents basically forced me to play. You know, I used to joke with I guess it was a joke. My dad would come home and the first thing he would say is Wayne, did you practice today? I thought that was my name. That was my full name. Wayne, did you practice today?
Yeah, I mean, that was the same thing for me. In fact, in the last episode, I was talking about how you had to like kind of still have a passion for something in order for you to break down and learn the basics. Some people just want to jump to like, I want to be Michael Jackson or PJ Morton, or you just want to do that thing. And you don't really like start from the beginning. And for me, so I wanted to play drums. I used to just beat on everything when I was little. Yeah. And then my parents put it together, got me lessons. And the guy was like, yeah, he gave me like this rudiment chart. I was like maybe like 6. He gave me this rudiment chart and like these, I had to like write in note values. I said, what is this? What is this? I don't want to play. I want to play the drums. I don't know what this is, but I didn't sign up for this. Yeah. So end of the story is I didn't continue those lessons. Yeah. But I did end up taking lessons still for the majority of my childhood for piano and voice, which did pay off. I mean, I'm in one of the world's most renowned choir right now, so clearly that paid off, and I'm glad that my parents pushed me to do that, because if it were up to me, I wouldn't have done it, and I'm glad that they did that.
I've got it all to owe to them.
Yeah,
if I didn't practice, there would be a punishment.
Oh man.
And I guess when I actually really, really liked it is when I found that I guess I got good for my age, and then people were impressed with what I was able to do. Right. I was like, wait a second, this is getting me, approbation. Right, my friends liked it. I was doing something that they couldn't do. So, and then of course the natural love of music just starts to foster as well.
Yeah. And I kind of wonder, so I mean, you said that your parents were kind of on you to keep practicing. Some people, they have a craft or something, and they don't necessarily have that pushing to them. It's all them. Yeah. How did you go about, even after you started to not necessarily have to be forced and you actually just wanted to perfect your craft? How did you go about sitting down and breaking down what you needed to get better at, or how to improve, and just the art of practicing in general?
Good question. In high school, I would say from the age of maybe 13 or 14, it wasn't a parent push thing. Even maybe earlier, 11, 12, it was me trying to push. And then I think the good instruction that I was getting helped as well. Good detailed instruction, the basics. I would have to be in they call it a piano guild, because I'm classically trained. A piano guild, and every year we would have to play all of our scales and arpeggios and cadences, and along with maybe 8 to 10 pieces by memory for this judge that would come from out of town and grade us with C's or A's, C's being the good thing, commendations, and A's being attention. So every year I had to do that. And then, besides that, it's just being consistent with a certain time of practice every day. I think I was in high school, it was probably about 2 hours a day, just every day, accumulating that 10,000 hours that those guys talk about. Yeah. So it wasn't, for me, it was really just kind of doing what I was supposed to do, and kind of doing what I was told to do. Through high school, we were just talking about it before we started. I had the perfect pitch thing. I didn't know that I had it. I was practicing every day. I was participating in the guild. I was trying to please my teacher. I was doing what I was supposed to do. But, with doing all of those basics and the scales and everything, when I started to play by ear, and that really was closer to college time, I didn't realize that all of the fundamentals that I was learning would help me in playing by ear. Right, and creating music. So when it came to improvising and, it wasn't like I was learning anything new. It was just learning how to apply what I'd been practicing all my life.
Yeah. Like 2 weeks ago, I had A.T. Westney on the podcast. So I always, like, every episode I refer to old episodes because the themes stay consistent, really. And he was just saying, like, you have to learn the basics in order to break the rules. He was like,
okay.
his mom used to push him like, he's like, why do I gotta play this chord progression? Why can't I just go this one? He was just trying to break all the rules from the jump. She was like, no, play it this way. And then he was like, he was glad that his mother did that for him, because if he didn't learn how to play it right originally, he probably would have never played it right.
Yeah. Many times when I'm talking to my students, I refer to, I guess, just vocabulary. You know, even I guess more so with the ear playing, when you're finding chords or developing it, you know, early on you'd say, this is a good book. I learned good to talk about a book, you know, and that word was all I knew as a young person, good. You know, then I'm walking around and I hear somebody talking and they say, yeah, this is an excellent book. I'm like, whoa, excellent? I can use excellent where I used good.
Right.
You know, but that doesn't mean that good is thrown away and I'll never say the word good again.
Right.
No, so you've got to keep all those fundamentals, and you're just building a vocabulary when you're learning and practicing.
Yeah. And for the practicing part, I think this is honestly the hardest part of any craft or anything that anyone is trying to build in their lives, is the beginning. Especially when you're not good yet.
Okay.
Especially when you have things in your ear, and we're in the age of social media. You're watching all these musicians on Instagram and Facebook, or you're watching these entrepreneurs, or you're watching these artists do these things, and you're like, I want to do that. And you sit down and you're like, all right, I'm going to get my 2 hours in today, and you just sound like terrible, or whatever you're doing. Like, I'm trying to get into Photoshop, and man, Photoshop and Adobe is like a beast. Like, there's so many options, and I have these things in my head that I want to create. And it's hard because it's just so time consuming, and you get frustrated. You get really frustrated with yourself, especially when you know what can be done.
Yeah.
How do you go about combating that and just sticking with it?
Great questions. I said this to Eric Thomas a long time ago, and he's taken it and made millions with it. And I got it from a movie. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
So it's never easy, but I think it starts with, if you're getting lessons and getting those fundamentals, it does start with the fundamentals, and you just do them. You do what your teacher says to do. But at the same time, everyone's created with a desire to do something. Like if you're drawn to jazz, if you're drawn to choral arranging, or if you're drawn to whatever, you've got to do that as well. I tell people in school all the time, look, okay, yeah, of course you got to do what I tell you to do as a teacher. But if you want to do film scoring, you need to be scoring some films like right now. So it's doing both. And then realizing, more so to your question, realizing that it's really hard for you to see your own growth when you're growing. You know, if you're working out, whatever, you know, you're going in there, putting your weights on, doing your reps, you know, and then you're looking at the mirror and like, okay, I've been working out for 3 months. Where is it? You know, but you just have to keep doing it. That's what they tell you to do. But then you're walking around and somebody sees you and is like, hey, Cleavon, you been working out?
Right. Yeah.
Like, oh,
wait, somebody noticed, man.
Yeah. So it's hard to see your own growth. So you just have to, you can't give up just because you don't think you're growing. You're always growing. That God's word is right. You know, what you sow, you're going to reap. If you're sowing and not reaping, something is wrong. So you're reaping, you know, you just don't see it. But yeah, I think it's the basics and going right for what you want, you know, and then don't try to reinvent the wheel. You know, if there's something that you want to do and you know somebody that does it, ask them what they're doing. The culture here, when I was a student at Oakwood, I'd walk into the practice rooms and be like, what'd you just play? Right. What was that? Show me that, you know, and I take it, you take it, at that point, it's still the person's. But when you take it, learn it, and then put it in something that you play, then it's yours. And you've now created a monster because the person that you stole it from doesn't have what you have. Right. You know, so you just keep doing that. And it just comes over years and years of practice and continue to add that vocabulary.
Yeah. Now that you said it, I think that is it, having a good balance of what you want to do and also what you have to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I guess I kind of see myself doing that now, kind of with the project I'm doing now with this podcast. And
Yeah.
I was a recording arts minor, so this is kind of like what I do ish.
Right.
Stuff.
And it reminds me as well as me coming through Oakwood. My teacher was Dr. Berry, and it was all classical. She didn't know any gospel or jazz or anything, But I got a opportunity to be in dynamic praise. They actually started calling it dynamic praise my freshman year.
Okay.
And learning from Owen and David Troford. At first I was only playing the spiritual parts for the choir. They used to do spirituals back in the day.
Wow. Okay.
But then they would do gospel as well. I'm like, I got to have this. I got to, this is wonderful. And I went back home that we were on quarter system, and I went back home that quarter, and I think I learned the whole entire Daryl Coley "I'll Be With You" album. I think Ricky Grundy was playing or something, but I was learning everything, just digested it. But at the same time, I would be in the practice rooms playing gospel really, really quietly because it almost wasn't accepted.
Right.
I was supposed to be practicing my classical stuff.
Yeah.
So I was doing both.
Yeah.
I needed to practice my classical stuff. Now I have my doctorate in piano performance of classical music, but at the same time, if I didn't get all of those contemporary chords from dynamic praise, I wouldn't have been writing all the gospel songs that I write these days either.
Right.
I wouldn't have been exposed to it. So both, do what's in your heart.
So that kind of draws me to the question, as far as your surroundings, it's clear that the environment you have been in has helped shape what you are doing now. How should someone who is in whatever industry that they're in go about finding an environment to help cultivate them and places that they can find, let me take this from this person, or let me be inspired by this person, because not everyone has that. Not everyone's out of Oakwood or in a tech hub in San Francisco, or some people have to kind of reach to find that inspiration or even collaboration with others.
Yeah, I feel like the answer is in your question. You have to reach to find it. There are musicians everywhere, every city. Obviously, it's definitely easy online now with the internet. But what you're asking is an important thing. I would not have gotten the skills that I acquired without having friends like Owen Simons and David Troford and Harold Watson from DC, and just so many people that were around me that were showing me what they could do. So that's very, very important. I don't really know exactly how you acquire it, but I think it's straightforward. If there's something that you want and of someone that has it, you go straight to the source. Any sensible musician would know better than to withhold what they have because they didn't get there on their own. They got it from somebody else. So, you could be looking into church culture, or, almost like a job shadowing thing, like what we used to do in high school. You would go to a medical doctor if you wanted to be a doctor and follow them. It's really it's an accolade, or what's the word I'm looking for? The people feel good about you asking them, about it. So it really is easier than it seems. It's just doing it.
Do you recommend someone, let's say if you want to go into film scoring or something like that, do you recommend necessarily moving to that environment, like go to LA or, where they are, or should you just
that seems
stay?
like the easy thing. I would recommend that, because that's easily a way to get into the environment better. If I live in Coleman, no offense to Coleman, that there's not a big film industry there.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to find a bunch of film producers, but LA, New York, Atlanta, if I was interested in that. So moving is possible.
Yeah.
But internet has made the world really small.
The internet has really made that gap, or that third man,
and a case in point,
middleman.
I was watching a film on PureFlix, and all the Christian movies or whatever.
Yeah.
and I see I guess it was the producer or the director's name. And I was thinking, man, there's some music that I would just do differently in this. I wonder who this director is. I look him up on Facebook and I see that we have mutual friends. Literally one of my best friends in Orlando.
Wow.
You know, so I text him on, I sent him a message on Facebook. I include my friend's name and he's like, we're great friends, look. And I was telling him about my son that's interested in movies as well. And he's like, look, if you need anything, just hit me up. I mean, that was just a message, you know, and we had already had so the internet, my goodness.
Yeah.
You can be living anywhere.
The power of the DM, the direct message, man. That's literally how I get like 80% of my guests on this podcast.
Just do it, man.
Just reaching out. It's, man, it's
that
at
is
your
the
fingertips.
Answer. Reach out. That's
Use it. Use the technology.
Yeah.
Okay, so you did this phenomenal thing that I don't know how you pulled it off. I'm sure that just everything that you built from when you started music to where you are now and just your relationship with God and how to be inspired. You wrote a song a day.
Oh, man.
I mean, that is in good music, great music. The amount of creative willpower and just focus really to pull that off, I think is just crazy. I kind of want to just get into one, why did you go for that challenge, challenging yourself to do that? And two, how did you go about it?
Oh my goodness. Why? Well, it's all God, number one. Let's start there. The why is my weakness, which is procrastination. It was December 2015, and I was actually on a Christmas tour with Take Six. I was subbing for Christian Dentley, and we just did a few cities, but it was great. I've always wanted to do that. I'd sub for them before with the regular stuff, but I never did the Christmas. So it was just wonderful. And I'd come back and my friends asked me, so how I like it? I'm like, that's wonderful, man. To be treated like a celebrity for, a couple weekends. That's just great. But throughout the trip, God was speaking to me and he's like, yeah, this is great icing, but this is not what I told you to do. This is just something extra, I've told you to write songs and write the songs that I've given you. And I have the problem. I've tried to psychoanalyze myself, of whenever I do something, I don't think it's good, and I don't know if it's been I've literally said to my wife, maybe it's like a demonic thing that I've, just got a spirit that is just ready to tell me that, no, that's not good.
I feel like a lot of people struggle with that though.
Yeah.
We're usually our worst critic.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, but it's really a good thing if you could tell yourself that you are good, because most people's natural tendency is to say this is trash.
I know some friends that are able to be like, look, man, you got to hear this song I just wrote. And I'm just like,
yeah, you do have those people. You do have those people.
I was just like, how can you do that? That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I admire it. And it's not arrogance, it's just confidence. Mm-hmm. But that's my problem. That's my thorn maybe. And I've done that for a long time, literally. And in the end of 2015, God gave me the idea and he said, you owe me. And I want you to write a song a day in the year 2016.
I'm like,
so
did I hear that right?
Yeah. And, looking back, or even while I was in it, I was like, what did I do? Because what made it harder is I knew I wouldn't do it unless I gave myself a challenge. So I put it out there on social media.
Yes.
And I said that I was going to write a song a day.
Yeah. I remember seeing that too. I was like, whoa.
Look, I didn't know I was on drugs or something. I didn't know what I was saying. It seemed fun. And I actually started maybe a few days before 2016. I'm like, just in case I fall behind, I'll have a few extra songs to do. And, it was even the eve of, I think it was January 1st, maybe almost January 2nd, and I'm sitting there, I've got the video. My friends came over and recorded the song. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I literally was just going to not do it, and I did it. Got all of these comments back from people that I didn't know about how the song was blessing them. And my friends, these troopers, man, that really, most of them have now helped me form this group, True Identity, that sings the songs. But they would come literally every day, and I would write a song, they would learn the song, we would record the song, and they would go home, and I'd start on writing another one for the next day, that night. And, I'm saying I would start on it, but throughout the year, it was miraculous how God would give me songs. The first 3 to 4 months of the year, to tell you how much I had procrastinated, really all I was doing was finishing a song idea that I had for years before. So I'm literally like 5 seconds, 7 seconds on my phone, but I'd put something on and then I'd never come back to it. So all of January, I completed all the songs for 2015. February, I completed all the songs for 2014. And so forth back to about 2012. That's how many song ideas I had.
Right, yeah.
So, but by the time I got to April, everything had to be brand new because I didn't have anything. And at that point, and someone that was following me told me that, hey, if you get this like 21 days in, if you do it, then a habit will be formed and it'll just start coming easy after that. So every day I would wake up with song ideas, literally just waking up and I made a promise to myself that no matter what the idea is, I have to record it and go to the piano, no matter what. So I would wake up, you could hear these crazy groggy recordings. Listen to another song idea this morning. This is probably nothing. Literally, there's so many things that you'd hear like that, and it would end up being a full song either that day or I'd work on it later. One of the best experiences of that was a really, really late night, maybe 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, and I had to start to a song called God Covers Me. And I was just really, really stuck. Didn't know where to go in the vamp. And I was tired. And I was like, God, I know I said I was going to write a song a day, but this is not temperate. This is not good, God. I should go to sleep, and it's as if he said, good, you're tired enough so I can just pour into you. And I mean, the whole vamp was just downloaded. And I mean, just the chord progressions that I'd never played before. And I'm just like, okay, this was otherworldly, So throughout the whole year, man, it was God doing that. Dreams, experiences, emotions. I find that I wrote a lot out of emotions, others' emotions. Someone had a loss and I felt it and I wrote, out of that. But sermons, worship thoughts, got a lot of stuff from that devotional book, Jesus Calling, because I would read that every day. And God, It was miraculous. At the end of the year, I actually lost track because during the summertime and traveling, sometimes I couldn't do it. So I would literally, in December, I had to write 3 songs a day to make the goal, I thought. But at the end of the year, I counted them and it was like 374 songs. So praise to God.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And the thing that's so even more phenomenal about it, you're a traveling artist, you're a professor,
right.
You're a dad, you're a husband.
Oh, man. Now that you say that, 2015, so I did it in 2016. In April of 2015, being all of those things and also being the chair of the department,
right,
there was something that I had to turn in. And I stayed up all night to do it. And the next day and for the rest of the year, from April to December, I had these heart palpitations that would happen every day. And I got all kind of tests and stuff done. They couldn't figure out what it was. And when I started doing the song a day, it went away. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Man.
Disobedience, man. Doing what God says to do.
The measures that he will go to kind of just like snap your attention.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it earlier, which I think is so important. I've said it on here before, is you put yourself out there. Because if you didn't, you probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, oh yeah. I wouldn't have been accountable.
Right.
I wouldn't have done it.
I'm such a big advocate of that. I mean, just That's what I've been doing. This is why I'm still doing a podcast a week. I said I'm going to do a podcast a week. I said on the podcast, I'm going to make business cards. I had to make the business cards.
Good
So it's
stuff, good
like,
stuff.
man, just kind of putting yourself out there could push you to doing. And then once you kind of get into it, you just want to do it. And it's almost like if people are paying attention to what you're doing, if you take a day off or a week off, they're like, dude, where's the podcast?
Right.
Like people start expecting it once they see that you're serious about it.
Yeah.
And they expect it from you. But I think that's so important. And then the last part that you said that I thought was so important was just allowing yourself to kind of just be used and kind of just taking what you think out of it, whether you think it's not good, or whether you think someone else could do it better, or whether you just don't believe you have the ability to do it at the time. Kind of just take yourself out the equation and just let your talents and your inspiration run rampant.
Yeah, man. I just heard this quote recently at a recital, and it was George Gershwin, classical composer, was asking Schoenberg for lessons. I think he would do that to a lot of different people. And Schoenberg said that you would just be a bad Schoenberg. Why be a bad Schoenberg when you could be a great Debussy, great Gershwin?
Right.
You know, it's being yourself, doing, even the group's name, True Identity, comes from that. Be you and be a great you. God has given me, he didn't give anybody else any one of those 365 songs. He didn't give not one other person.
Right. Yeah.
Crazy. And I want to say they're trash.
Right.
Thanks for the gift, God. It's trash.
Man. If you have an idea, just do it. Like,
man.
Just even the things like I put on my Instagram, like little stupid videos. Like, people come to me randomly like, man, your page is funny. I'm like, first of all, I'm not a funny person. In fact, I'm probably the other end of the spectrum. I'm usually a pretty serious person. But like, those are things that I was just like, I'm just going to record it.
Yeah.
And just put it out, just throw it out there. People like it sometimes. So yeah, never count yourself out. Never underestimate the influence that you have on people. Wrapping up, I usually ask this question because the people I have on here, they have such a wealth of wisdom that they surprise me with the answers, and they're so good. Two questions actually. The first one, if you could go back in time and kind of just, or even you're here and you could kind of see your younger self, you could go back to whatever time period you want, 6-year-old picking up piano to high school, figuring out you have perfect pitch or whatever it is, getting your first job, whatever it is, and say something to that Wayne Bucknor. What would you tell him? Would it be, something advice? It could be, I don't know what it will be, but just have at it.
This could go so many ways. Oh man, I could have practiced harder. I could have, at some point, you're just practicing to fulfill the time. But be it in music or be it in school, I'd say don't learn for the grade, learn for the knowledge, like just totally take all of this in. I mean, because I did tens of thousands of hours of classical practice, but did I really study the composers that I was practicing, or was I just learning a piece real quick for a teacher? I could have took on the spirit of Beethoven or Mozart or Chopin, and been able to be my own Chopin if I really studied them instead of just learning a piece. Right. It's like, I'm through. Okay, what's next? Yeah. So we do that in school too. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I got to be an expert at that.
I think we all kind of have, man.
Yeah. It's not about that, man. In my history classes, history's so important now that I'm a older person, but no, I didn't. I hated it, and I'd make the grade, but no, I don't need this information.
Right.
So it's just anything. Just you study for you, study to build yourself up, not for grades. So I think I would say to practice a little harder, and more in depth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of a quote. Did I post it? Maybe not yet. But it was by Tom Bilyeu, and I think it was saying, stop trying to be, stop trying to find out the way to do the least and be good. Instead, start thinking about how you could take the most you could possibly bear and be great. That wasn't exactly it, but that was the gist.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, we're usually trying to find out like quickest way to lose weight in 2 weeks, or or fastest route to be making passive income and things like that. And it's like, the people who are really winning are the ones who put in the work and the time and the effort and all that stuff. Shortcutting yourself, you could possibly be successful, but you won't be great.
Right.
So and the last thing, I asked this to almost every guest. Imagine that I'm about to start naming it because I asked the question so much. So it's like Visionary Boulevard or something, right? Or kind of like University. People are driving down. You see the billboards on the side. Sometimes you see Oakwood ads on there.
Yeah.
And you own the rights to this billboard, and you could put anything on there that all these visionaries and creatives and entrepreneurs and musicians and artists see. What would you put on there? What would be the message that you would give to them?
A scripture comes to mind, Ecclesiastes 9:10, I believe. And it is, whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might. And that could be anything. I know a lot of people, some people know their purpose. Some people don't know their purpose. And what you do if you don't know it, or if you know it, is do it with all of your might. Literally anything. If you're going to do something, that means that you have to give it your all. Like anything. So I do piano, I'm going at it all the way. If I'm playing volleyball, if I'm cleaning toilets, if I'm, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I just have to be the best at it, or at least do it with all that I have to do it with. And you can't go wrong there. You can't go wrong. You're gonna either create a career for yourself. Somebody's gonna notice the greatness that you're doing and say that you need to be doing this. There's so many examples that we could look at where someone is doing a job and that's not their end job, but because they do that job so well, I want you to do this for me, and now you're making six figures with something that you didn't even go to school for, just because of your work ethic. So whatever it is that you're picking up, broadcasting, you got to know everything. I remember a story that was in an old Dennis Kimbrough. I think it's called African American. I'm sure I'm messing this title up, but Motivations for African American Success. And it was a story about two men that were working on a railroad, or they would call it laying tracks. That's what they would do. They were just putting the tracks on to build the thing. And but the story went that one of the men ended up being the president of the railroad company, and so the interviewer and the other guy was still laying tracks, and the interviewer asked the guy that was still laying tracks what was the problem. He was like, well, while I was laying tracks, he was building a railroad.
That's good.
So, every track, he probably knew the material, what was being made for this track. He was like, I wonder if I laid it this way or did it, he just knew he was not just working, so just doing with all his might, man. Anything, that's anything. If you like sports, then you need to know all the stats for your favorite team. You need to know them all. If that's going to be your thing, just be that guy. So anything. And if you're not, just don't do it. Just say, okay, this is part of my thing that I'm just not going to do anymore. Okay, I won't play the guitar anymore. I'll just focus on piano and I'm going to do, But if I'm going to pick up a guitar, then look, I'm going to have to get those 2 hours in on the guitar as well.
All in. Yeah.
So whatever your hands find to do it with all your might.
That's good. That was a great way to end it off. Appreciate it, Dr.
No
Bucknor.
problem, man. Thanks for the honor.
Great. Awesome. Appreciate you.
Boom. There it is. I hope you enjoyed that episode and interview with Dr. Wayne Bucknor. Did you learn something? I learned a lot in this episode, and hopefully you did as well. If you want to take out a pen or a pencil during your episode to write down some things, I recommend that. Take out your phone, type it in your phone so that you don't forget the key points that you really want to take away and start applying to your life immediately and start building and continue building that vision that you're working towards. So I'm going to share a few of my notes that I took throughout this episode that really resonate with me, and maybe it could resonate with you as well. So first, you have to start with the basics. Dr. Bucknor, even though he necessarily didn't want to have to practice those basics and his dad would get on him, he's so happy that he did because he was able to build on the top of those fundamentals. And he talked about building a vocabulary. He went from using the word good to describe something that he loved to using the word excellent, something that he didn't even know he could use before because he was constantly building those blocks on top of each other of the fundamentals. Whether it takes you some time of going to school to get an education, or investing in some courses, or staying up all night on YouTube University, figuring out how to do that edit on that certain video that might be easy to some other people, but you haven't figured it out yet. You have to do it so that you could build your vocabulary and start using words and using your creativity in ways you weren't able to before. But you also don't want to always be doing things that you have to do. You always want to be doing things that you want to do as well. If we keep doing things that we necessarily have to do, thinking that we have to make someone else happy or fulfill the status quo or the quota, we will lose that genuine motivation and inspiration that we have. We have to do things that we like to do. As creative people, we have certain ideas, we have certain things that we want to produce and put out into the world. So do those as well. Don't just focus on what you have to do. Focus on what you want to do at the same time. If you want to start doing film scores, like Dr. Bucknor said, start writing out some film scores. If you want to be making movies, even though you're in school right now, start making your own movies right now. Start doing it so that you also be motivated and inspired and start applying the things that you're learning, the things that you have to learn, to things that you want to do. You also want to be in an environment that cultivates you. And Dr. Bucknor talked about how he was going to different practice rooms, figuring out, hey, what was that chord progression that you used right there? And he was grabbing and taking that thing that he learned from that person and applying it to his own life and making it his own. Put yourself in an environment that cultivates your craft. That might not mean you have to move necessarily to a different city, but find those friends online, make those connections, talk to those people, find that group that does meet in your city. Even though it might be small and intimate, it's still a group of people that you could grow from and share things with and be inspired by. So you want to do that. And lastly, you want to make yourself accountable. I talk about it all the time, how I put myself out there saying things that if I don't say it, I probably won't do it. Dr. Bucknor wrote a song a day. That is incredible. And he put himself out there by saying that he was going to do it. So now he can't back out of it. I implore you you don't have to do it on that level, but at least tell somebody that you're going to do something. Have someone be accountable for you so that you have that push, that drive to hold up the things that you said you were going to do. If you said you're going to make a movie, tell everyone that your movie is dropping at this and this date, so that now they're waiting on that movie. You better figure it out how to get there, and that will push you to new levels and new heights that you didn't even know that you could do because you had that pressure on you to be accountable for yourself and what you said you were going to do. Lastly, just look for inspiration in everything. There's no way that you could write a song a day without being inspired. Dr. Bucknor wasn't only looking within himself for inspiration, but he was looking at people, the emotions that they were having, the environment that he was in, and he was making those experiences into his own and creating a beautiful product from it. Guys, I hope you learned something about practice and perfecting your craft in this episode. Continue building your vision. Continue turning your dreams into reality every single day. If you like this episode, subscribe if you haven't already. This is your first episode of the Muse Report that you've heard. Click that subscribe button. You'll be notified every single time I release a new episode on Tuesdays and Fridays. And if you really love this episode, leave a rating and a review. Let people know what you gathered from this episode. Let people know how you liked this show. Is it helping you? Is it giving you some type of practical information that you can apply to building your vision? Let me know. Put in the ratings and the reviews. And if you don't know how to do that, shoot me a DM on Instagram, either at the Muse Report Podcast on Instagram or at cle.davis on Instagram. Speaking of Instagram, if you're active on Instagram, hey, if you like the show, shout us out on Instagram. Put a screenshot of you listening to the episode on your Instagram story, tag at the Muse Report Podcast, and I get to see who's listening, what 2 cents you're taking from the show, and just show some love. If you really like it, share it with somebody else so they can see it and build from it. And if they have a vision, if they have something that they're working towards, they could benefit from this podcast as well. Thank you guys. I'll talk to you on Friday with another episode. Until then, peace.
Oh, that's the end of our MRP episode. Thank you for listening, everything, but it's time to go. We'll have a new one for you next week on the flip side. But until then, don't kill the vibe, subscribe. Don't kill the vibe, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Don't kill the vibe, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Don't kill the vibe, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Don't kill the vibe, make sure you go ahead and subscribe.